Hello everybody. Welcome to the first episode of History Dad. The purpose of this webcast is for me to talk about some things in history that people should know, but a lot of people don't. The other purpose is for me to talk about things that people do know, but I think they could stand to look at them in a different way. For this first episode, we are going to talk about the Congo. Specifically about the colonization of the Congo, which started around 1885. The main player in our story is King Leopold of Belgium. King Leopold was not a good guy. He really wasn't. He had a couple driving factors in his life. One was he thought Belgium was too small for him. He wanted Belgium to be a big, wealthy, major player on the world stage like his neighbors, France, Germany, pretty much everyone else in Europe. He also wanted to be an old-fashioned king. This was really well into the period where all of the governments in Europe are going to more of a parliamentary government. He didn't want that. He didn't want people to be voting on the laws. He wanted to be able to make a decision. That was a decision. He was the king. Another big factor about Leopold is he was greedy. Really greedy. When he was a younger man, he traveled around a lot. In those travels, he came to the conclusion that the way for a kingdom or a nation to become truly wealthy is to have a colony. Someplace where you could really exploit the resources. So when he became king, he went about trying to get a colony. He first tried to buy a colony. He approached the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the Spanish, and he asked them all, can I buy a colony? And they all said, no, thank you very much, go get your own colony. So that's what he went about doing. The place to do that at the time was Africa. See, all of Europe was eyeing up Africa. A lot of natural resources, they all started to claim port cities along the coast. So that was where he went. Our tale really starts in 1884 to 1885 during the Berlin Conference. It was during this conference that all of the European nations sent representatives. They all got together, and the U.S. sent representatives. And the topic was to divide up Africa like a big cake. It is important to note that no Africans were invited. Why would they be? See, everyone in Europe, or at least the leadership, thought this was fine for a couple reasons. The big one, the real reason, is that they were all racist. They all felt that Africa was peopled by uncivilized barbarians. In a nutshell, they weren't Christian. So, that's what they get. So Leopold did a lot of political maneuvering before and during this conference. He approached France and said, look, I want to take over I want to be in charge of a lot of the Congo, this association I'm going to put together. The reasons he stated were that he wanted to be a philanthropist. He wanted to go in there and civilize Africa. He wanted to convert them to Christianity, help them develop themselves, and also he wanted to rid them of the scourge of Arab slaving. See, in this country, whenever we talk about slavery, we automatically think of us. And yes, we were a horrible slave trading nation for quite a few years. But by this time, that was all done. There was no more slave trade with Americas. However, in the Arab world, there still was a slave trade. Maybe not as massive, but it was there. So he said he was going to go in and rid them of the slave trade and free the Africans from this oppression. So he approached France, and France said, fine, go ahead and have your little colony for philanthropic reasons. They really believed there was no way it would work. Couldn't afford it. To sweeten the deal, Leopold went to France and said, look, I will give you right of first refusal, which means if I do go bankrupt and I have to sell this colony, you get the first rights to buy it. France thought this was great. They were sure he was going to bankrupt himself in no time. So they went along with it. Then Leopold went to Britain. Said, I want to have this as a colony for philanthropic reasons. Oh, by the way, I have given right of first refusal to France. Britain did not want France to get this colony, so they were much happier with Leopold having it. They didn't want anything more to expand French power. They just didn't. Then he went to Germany. Germany was a little different story because Kaiser Wilhelm did not buy any of this philanthropy bit that Leopold was dishing out. But Germany had their own colonial aspirations in Africa, and as long as Leopold didn't interfere with them, they didn't care. Whatever. Go ahead and do whatever you want. So by the end of the conference, Leopold walked out with the Congo as his personal colony. Let me give you an idea how big this was. The Congo that Leopold owned himself was bigger than England, France, Germany, Spain, and Italy combined. It was 1/13 of the African continent, and Africa is a big place. It was 72 times larger than Belgium, the place he was already a king of. It was huge. So immediately Leopold got to work doing what his real goal was, wringing out every penny he could from this place. Started with the ivory trade, ended up moving into the rubber trade. He did this for 23 years. In the process, he took the equivalent of $1.1 billion out of the Congo. That was not to the Belgian government. That was to him, personally. He succeeded in his endeavor. He really did. The problem is, in the process of this, he killed 10 million people. Think about that number. 10 million people. Off the top of my head, the only people I can associate something that horrible, an atrocity that large with, is Hitler and Stalin. These are both people that are well known. We all know Hitler and Stalin were bad. They were as bad as it could be. The baddest of the bad guys. Everyone knows it. Everyone accepts it. Nobody knows about Leopold. Nobody understands or is aware of what he did in the Congo. And make no mistake, it was all about greed. There was a movie back in the 80s called Wall Street. In this movie, there was a character, Gordon Gekko, who gave a speech. The gist of the speech was that greed is good. Fine, as a concept, I can understand this in a certain context in a small way. But greed unchecked, greed with this little regard for any sort of, well, anything else, any sort of morality, is horribly destructive. That is one thing you can learn from Leopold in the Congo. I think it's an important lesson that we do learn, that everyone is aware of, so hopefully we can keep from repeating it. All right. I'll go in later date into how he did it, how he managed to subjugate a country of 20 plus million people with just a few thousand people working for him. I will also go into how it all ended. Who were the people responsible for bringing this all to light and really ending Leopold's ownership of the Congo? But I have a personal theory that lectures from a dad and YouTube videos should not be longer than 10 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this up. We will continue at a later date. And I suggest everyone goes outside and does something. All right. Well, you have a good day.